this is kind of, I get it's going to be a very broad, vague question, but it is kind of what's running through my head. So last year, big goals, and it nothing went the way it had planned. And it was a really, really, really challenging year for me in all aspects of my life. And the first half of the year, I kind of believed all the bullshit that was going on in my head, like all the stories that my brain was telling me that to believe, which didn't help. And then sometime in the middle of the year, I figured out how to kind of shift things around and shift my energy a bit and make things feel better in my head. But I here we are in the new year, whatever that means, and I'm not sure what else to do to create bring back my energy and my enthusiasm. Like for everything. I kind of ripped apart my business and changed how I delivered everything because it didn't feel like it was working. I didn't have any excitement in it. And I have excitement in it now, but something still feels off. And I'm not getting the results that I want. And like the peaks and valleys of my revenue, 1 month good, 1 month horrible. It's really been super challenging in that way. And I know all the work is in me, and I'm not really sure what more for me to be being or
Right.
to be embracing.
Yeah. So are we saying, thank you for sharing, by the way, and for being vulnerable today. And so are we saying that it's not, so you have more energy is what I hear in this new structure. It
Mhm.
feels more exciting for you. However, you're saying it's not working. And is that based off the financials that you're saying that, or what else is happening?
Um, Partly for sure. That's something I became aware of last year is that the only way I ever decided that I was successful or good enough was if I had enough money to pay all the bills and support my family. And so last year, when that started not happening, sent me into a huge spiral, which has given me a great opportunity to figure out my value outside of money, which is great. Um, and at the end of the day, though, you still have to have a certain amount of money coming in to pay everything, right? Or things start bouncing, and then I guess I get an opportunity to decide if I really need to keep that thing or not. Um, I don't know, I don't know if it is working, but I guess time will tell, and I have to believe it's going to work before I see it.
Yeah. So it's
Maybe I'm looking for ways to believe it before I see it, or to
right.
have more trust in myself, more faith in myself. That's been a huge thing over the last few months, is just like, why don't I just trust myself more with all that I've already done? Why have I judged it all whew, so wrong and not good enough?
Yeah. So you're feeling shame. Yeah.
Mm.
So what does shame tell us we desire?
What does shame tell us we desire?
So every emotional red that we
Oh,
feel is communicating to us what we really want to create for ourselves. And no, it's not a type of business. It's not home ownership. It's not investment in crypto. It's not a marriage proposal. It's an emotional state of well-being. And we can understand what it's trying to communicate to us based off the principle of polarity, of duality. Everything has a polar opposite. There's light and there's darkness, there's cold and there's hot. And our emotions mirror themselves in the same way. So they offer us a guidance system to support us in understanding what it is that we truly desire. So shame is a kind of vibration that is very similar to judgment, right? It's a form of judgment. What does it tell us through the principle of polarity that we're trying to create for ourselves?
The only first thing that comes up is something that I don't believe I deserve.
Self-acceptance. What came up?
Yeah, could be. Yeah. Yeah, immediately I went no, and then I went, well, then that's a yes.
So what were you gonna say that you didn't
What was I going to say? What? Sorry.
when you said you what came up you don't think you deserve? So what was that? What did come up?
Oh, I didn't have a specific thing, but it just feels like so much of this is rooted in a lifetime of not believing that I deserve anything other than what somebody else has decided.
Right. So that's kind of cool though. That's your quest. It's not your punishment. It's not your like you fucked up in a past life and you are being punished. You will never deserve anything. Every one of us is on a quest, multiple quests. That's what our lives are about. We're storytellers. And if you look at how stories are constructed, the protagonist faces challenges and duality in order to grow skills and competencies and aptitudes to conquer the day. And then in the books and movies we read, there's like the end, but what we know to be true is like, well, after Ariel married the prince, he cheated on her, she had kids and didn't like her body and the cellulite. She started to go into another quest of loving herself, right? It's never really the end until death, and then even that's speculative, is that really the end? We don't know. We've shown that we can't destroy energy, so we're constantly on these quests, and your quest, it seems to be, is one of self-acceptance and love, right? And then there's other things
100%.
in there as well, because what you've clearly said is like you're measuring your confidence and your sense of I did it and your sense of success is based on the money coming in. So
Yeah.
you will feel abundant and you will feel accomplished and you will feel confident and you will feel worthy when money comes in and looks a certain way in your business. When it's
Yeah.
not going up and down, when it's not behaving a certain way, when it's not doing this or that, then you will feel those states. Yeah. So money, your business, your money, those are just relationships that you hold in your life. And they're no different to any other human-based relationship that we hold. And if we superimpose that premise of when my money behaves this way or doesn't act this way or does this, then I will feel confident and worthy and valuable. And we superimpose that onto a human relationship and we say, when this person stops behaving this way, or when my kids stop being da da da, then I will feel worthy, then I will feel secure. We intuitively know immediately that doesn't work. In fact, that's going to lead to
Mhm.
a very dependent, toxic, or destruction of that very relationship. We will push those people away or we will
Mhm.
compel those behaviors, right? If you tell your kids, like, if you're a helicopter and you tell them, you can never leave my sight. You have to be in my eye line all the time, otherwise I will lose my sense of self-worth. Those kids are likely either going to be very incompetent adults or they're going to do the total opposite. They're going to leave your sight completely, right? So
Mhm.
the great quest that you're on and the exciting thing is that you're clearly communicating to yourself through the emotional reds what it is that you truly desire for yourself. And you think it's a business that has financial stability, but really your soul doesn't give a shit about that because, and here's how I know this to be true. If tomorrow the air was going to, if there was a giant volcano that exploded on planet Earth and air became scarce, you wouldn't give a shit about money. Trust me. Abundance would no longer be a dollar sign in your bank account. It would be like, how do I eat and how do I breathe? Who's got some air, right? So like the money itself is like we begin to measure. And at the beginning of your question, you started that off. You said you set some big goals for yourself for 2024 and shit went the other way around. This is one of the reasons why I don't bother setting goals anymore. I don't do vision boarding anymore. I do it for my garden because I don't mind if chaos shows up in my garden. It's fun chaos. It's like yesterday I got stung by a bee and then cut my finger almost off the other day with some shears. That wasn't so much fun, but I don't set goals in my business anymore, and I don't set goals financially for myself anymore because I understand how it's a very difficult thing to not do that without attachment. But that's
I've
the
always
whole,
wondered.
if you can set goals and have complete detachment to it, go for it. Set those intentions. That's the way they should be done. But to completely detach yourself, when what I've discovered is that often when I set a big goal for myself, what happens is then I create a condition over my well-being. I'll say, then I will feel abundant and I feel like I did it and I will feel success when the money does this or when I sell this many people in or when whatever, my house gets renovated or whatever. And the moment we create conditions over our sense of well-being is the moment chaos will show up to support us, to help us create what it is we ultimately desire. Because most of us on this call can agree that our circumstances, by and large, is the result of the actions and behaviors we took, right? Which is by and large the result of the thoughts and perspectives that we held. Yeah. Now, it's very difficult for us to know what our thoughts and perspectives are at any one moment because the brain is constantly moving and a lot of those are subconscious, and that's what emotions are for. Emotions are that they're very easy for us to discern. They're very easy for us to build awareness around and then understand what the thoughts are and the perspectives are and to but by and large, reality is really a reflection of residual past thoughts and perspectives that we held. And so, how the fuck is reality going to be the thing that gives you and validates a sense of confidence, a sense of I did it, a sense of when it's literally a mirror? How is it going to be the one that does the first move? You're the point of attraction, you're the one who's leading the way. What you're here to do is not to create a certain type of business or to have revenue, not non-revenue fluctuate, revenue stability, or to be a multimillionaire. That's not what you're here to do. What you're here to do is to alchemize those emotional states that you ultimately seek in having revenue stability, in having the ability to pay your bills. Your soul doesn't care about those things. In fact, the problem of those things is very fun. It's play to your soul because that's the creative edge that forces you to create those greens. The human part of us, the ego, is like, no, this sucks. I'm a failure. But in that moment, what you're communicating to yourself is like what I really desire. When I cannot pay my bills and when revenues fluctuates, I feel shame and I feel incompetent and I feel frustrated and I feel like a failure. Well, that's telling you what you really want. It's telling you, I don't know how to feel abundant and successful and worthy and deserving, unconditional of my money or what my business is doing or what other people are saying to me. The guys that are at the top, the men and women that are really successful financially, if you look at Elon Musk and those types of guys, like the type of conviction and confidence they have Because it's not that they didn't encounter failures. It's not that they never went bankrupt. In fact, some of those guys hit that point many times. It's not that they never, that money was always around in their lives. In fact, they had moments where it was like really fine line for them. They had to self-source this confidence. They had to self-source this is going to work. I can do this. This is exciting to me. I want to do this. It wasn't contingent on what the money and all these other things were going to do. Otherwise, they would have given up. The people that are at the top of their game, they get hammered by trolls. You see Reddit threads left and right just destroying these people. Not because, they're horrible people, it's just the more seen you are, the more visible you are, the more that's going to happen to you. They cannot have their sense of confidence contingent on other people's opinions. Otherwise, they can't sustain that. They go and become an Amanda Bynes or whatever, an alcoholic, and they just lose. I don't know her, I shouldn't say that, but they just lose, they cannot sustain it. In fact, it's a bad thing for them. It will likely put them into a total space of depression and shutting down. And a lot of celebrities go through that, right? And then they have to learn how to not give a fuck, how to lead the way with their confidence so that they can hold and sustain what it is they really want, visibility, impact. It's self-source. We start with that. And the challenges, so what happened is you set these really big intentions for yourself and you're like, this is going to happen. And then there was an attachment that happened, a condition. Well, if my business doesn't do this, then I'm a failure. I'm not worthy. And then what you did was you went, oh, that's not how it works. You got to lead the way with oh, I'm just gonna mute Daryl. There you go. Right? The universe said, well, or you or God or whatever you want to call it said, well, that's not how it works. Reality is a mirror of you. So if it's like the guy who says, well, I'm going to feel this is what happened in my last company. I was like, I'm going to feel so worthy when I get the plastic surgery, when I hit this number in my business. And then I got the plastic surgery and I hit the number. And maybe for a minute, there was a dopamine hit where I felt like I did it. But I'm telling you, it's short-lived. Humans normalize that shit. And those external circumstances, they will never give you those emotional states of well-being that you think they will. It will never happen. What will happen is that you will start manically chasing for the next hit. And then you become like this Alex Hermosi that's working 7 days a week, has no fucking weekends or life, constantly chasing the money for the hit. And you've forgotten that it's really in the journey. The joy is in the journey, in the alchemy of creating those expansions, those states of well-being in the here and now. And it's not about your crypto wallet or the marriage proposal, or if you're a home ownership or any of those things. You'll buy the house and you're going to feel great for a month. And then I promise you, you're going to want the next thing. And the house is never going to be the thing that makes you feel secure. In fact, now you're going to feel stressed that you have a fucking mortgage. Right? And if you pay your house in full and you don't own a mortgage, now you're going to be worried that the kids are after the inheritance. Like there's always fucking something. So if you don't know how to self-source those emotional states, the external circumstances are not going to be the thing to bring that to you. And the reason you're withholding it from yourself is because you're trying to get yourself to realize you lead the way. What you really want is self-acceptance. What you really want is a state of abundance. What you really want is a sense of, I did it. I fucking did it. And stability. But what you're doing is you're saying those states are dependent on my bank account. You're using a measuring tape of money. And money is a total reflection of us, by the way. Our businesses, our children, our money. I mean, all relationships mirror us, but those ones, mental health, physical health, and our financial health, those three relationships mirror us the most. That's why we use those three factors the most as chaos when we have conditions over well-being. First, it will be the mental health. You'll feel anxious. You'll go into depression. And if you're not listening to that, then your physical health will start to go down the line. And then your bank. And it's not always in that order, right? We can swap, but those are the easiest mechanisms for us to create chaos because they mirror us perfectly. Our bank accounts, our health, our mental health, and our physical health. So you're using the money, which is a reflection of you, as a measuring stick to to tell you when you're allowed to feel self-acceptance and abundance and stability. And the reason you're withholding it and putting yourself into yo-yos right now is because it's just you're trying to get yourself to realize that's not how it works. And usually that will continue to get worse and worse until you hit a financial rock bottom or a mental or a physical health rock bottom. And then that it's at that point that people give up and they're like, "Ugh, I'm just gonna be happy, just as is, fuck it." And then lo and behold, they experience their biggest growths on the back of that, right? Is the same with like pregnancy or love when people are like, I really want to find a lover, and they're like so attached to it. And then they let it go. They're like, I give up. I'm just gonna be happy single. And then bam, they meet the love of their life, right? We've all experienced this phenomenon in some capacity, in some way, because then we have the detachment, you see? The thing that I'm telling you is quite difficult to do, which is why I don't really bother with a lot of goals anymore. My goals are all intrinsic. The intentions I set are all based on things that I have sovereignty on, never external to myself except my garden. So, connecting with more play, trusting myself when the voice of fear shows up. These are things I all have control over. And when I set those types of intentions, I'm not creating conditions over those states of well-being. So the misconception is thinking that stability is based in money. Do you know how stable you are right now on planet Earth? Do you know how lucky you are to be a female living in this time, first of all? Like as much if you listen to the news and you go on social media, you may be thinking otherwise that humans are fucked and it's a horrible time to be alive and we're all doomed, but actually this is the most abundant time of humanity that humanity has ever seen. Period. People, even in third world countries, have three freaking iPhones. People all over the world can start a business so long as they have internet access. This has never been available to people in the past. So, and Mother Earth, she's underneath you. She's so stable. Like that shit is fucking so stable, you don't even think about it. You take it for granted. The source of all your abundance is always there for you. The air, the water. You have hot water. You can wash your clothes in half an hour. It used to take us like 3 fucking days to do shit like that. You know what I mean? There's so much stability and there's so much abundance around you. And the key is for you to shift your focus away from using your money so that you're perceptive of a gap, which actually gets reflected back to you because it distances you from what you really want, the sense of abundance, to focusing it on how it's already there and celebrating and like reveling. Like this is the example I gave a client yesterday. Like if you're a wine connoisseur, you're like swill the wine around. You don't just chug it, right? Like people, I don't really drink, so, but what I've seen and when I did like wine or went to wine tastings was like, you don't just chug the wine. You like smell it and then you swill it and you're like, and you swish it around in your mouth and you're like, oh yes, there's notes of whatever, hazelnut in there. And then you sip it. Like you're with that experience, you're like reveling, you're savoring it. Like every day, those micro moments are showing up for you all around of abundance, of stability, of self-acceptance. But what we do is because we have a measuring stick against money is we just push it away. We don't receive it. We don't swish it around. We don't feel it in the body. We disconnect ourselves from those states and we go, only when this happens can I feel that. And we forget it's a reflection of us. That's not how it works. We have to feel it first. We have to sustain those states first. And then reality comes to meet us about those things. And then the opportunities, the clients, the synchronicities, those things happen. And then when it happens, it doesn't change who you fucking are. It's not this exhausting dopamine chase that you're constantly on because you felt abundant. You felt fucking great. And when the money shows up, it's almost like you got to remind yourself to celebrate because you were already feeling that way anyways. It doesn't change a single thing about you. You were already feeling that way. And so the money showed up. And if you have to use your imagination to, feel into those states, then do that. That's literally your superpower as a human. Sometimes I pretend I'm like, I'm an alien. I just came down to planet Earth. How do I use this? How do I open this can? And I open the can and I'm like, I did it. Ah, there was a micro moment of I did it. Sometimes I fist pump the air, like just celebrate, like, yeah, I don't know, I just do it. Because that's the vibration, the energy of the person that's celebrating. I put it in my body, I feel it, I play with it. That's what you're inviting yourself towards, is that you're saying to yourself right now, like, you're not creating what you really want to create, which is those states. You're waiting on external things to give you the green light to feel those states, but what you're really here to do, and the most fulfilling thing for you to do, is to create those states, unconditional. To feel hope in the face of despair, to feel love even when it is withheld from you, to feel self-acceptance even when people tell you you suck. That is the most fulfilling shit you will ever create in this lifetime. And it should never be external. And in fact, we will invite external duality and challenges to help us in this creative process. It's not a punishment. You're not doing something wrong. It's not like, what, we don't even need to go into our past and say, what did my mom say to me when I was 6 and my karmic past lives? Like, because that, just focusing on that puts us even more in the reds, It doesn't do what we ultimately desire, which is the green. That's what we want. All of that was just showing us the green that we wanted to create. So we just create that in the here and now. And yeah, it might be tricky for example, a lot of people who are in overwhelm, a lot of the clients that I work with, that's a common vibration they're under, is working with this busyness and believing that if they're not constantly busy, the house of cards will fall down. So they constantly have to be busy. So one of the first things I start doing with them is we start taking long weekends. And oh, that is so uncomfortable for them. They don't like that one bit. The brain is going off, sending red alarms, but you practice it and just like the stretch, you stretch into it and then it gets easier. And then, yeah, no one wants to take that back. They're like, I'm never giving up my long weekend now. There's no fucking way, you know? So initially it might be difficult, but if you practice, the good news is that your imagination and this emotional alchemy is actually your superpower. It's what you're here to do. So just like with any other muscle of the body, if you're intentional about it and you practice it, it will become more flexible. It will become stronger. That's just what happens. And then you'll sustain the state for longer. It'll be easier to sustain it. And then it becomes your modus operandus. It's not that you'll always feel secure and never have insecurities or always feel green. You wouldn't want that. The duality is really important. The reds, you would never know what fulfillment is unless you felt unfulfilled. You would never know what clarity is unless you felt confused. We really need this duality. It's important for growth. However, what we can do is take ourselves off this quest that we're on to conquer it and then take us into the next one. Because it's not going to end just because you suddenly realize I am worthy and you give yourself these states, right? Now, one of the tips I want to give you around self-acceptance is that it is a form of judgment, and we are judging ourselves. And usually, one of the easiest ways for us to accept and own up those parts of ourselves that we suppress is to actually tell other people about it. And so, what you will find after today's call is likely a lightness in your being just from having openly told strangers about your situation. But if there are things in your life, as I talk about this, think about this. If there are things in your life that you've hidden or that you're ashamed of, maybe you stole something when you were 13, like some people have stupid little shames that haunt them, right? Then I would absolutely go and tell the person that was involved or tell people, like, just own yourself. Because people think we have to be perfect, and they don't give, and then we don't give ourselves permission to have a dual experience, to have revenue fluctuations, to have resentment towards this person, or to have done this or done this. It's like we deny that dual part of ourselves and we think that we have to shame this. It's very hard to step into full self-acceptance if you still carry shame and you are hiding little secrets like Gollum, and you're like, these are my secrets. No one can know about these. Just fucking let them go. Tell people about it. That's the easiest way to dissipate the entire energy around those secrets so that you can actually touch self-acceptance. You go, yeah, that's who I am. I fucking was. This took me a while, right? I used to hide that I was a stripper for a long time. My best friends didn't even know. And then it felt like I was wearing a mask. Like people didn't know this dirty little secret. Nowadays, I'm like, well, that was part of my story. Like, why was I so silly? The things we're ashamed of, right? So silly. So does this make sense?
So helpful. So helpful. And just kind of reconfirms that I've been on the right path. And um, relationships. And I think starting with relationship with me, being kinder to me
Yeah, go date
and
yourself. Yeah, go figure
all
out.
that. I thought about this earlier this year. My relationship with money is very similar to my relationship that I had with my ex-husband.
Yeah, the reds will
And
show up in all your relationships. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yes, and yeah. And
The
so
shame will show up in
it,
your romantic relationships. It will show up with your money. It will show up in your business because all relationships are connected. They're all a domino. Yeah, absolutely.
yeah,
If
yeah,
you're
it starts
experiencing
with me.
betrayal in your romantic relationship, you'll experience betrayal in your business. It will show up everywhere. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll just keep going. I thank you so
But
much.
as I said, it's not a punishment. It's because you're trying to help yourself to create. That's why it will show up
Yes,
across all. Because it's like, wake up, wake up. Betrayal, the opposite of betrayal is what? That's what we want, you know? Yeah.
yeah. Thank you so much.